Historically, planned burning wasn't done because it was seen to make the bush more flammable. There was burning done by a lot of farmers to create fresh pig for grazing, but the Stretton Royal Commission in 1939, so there were big bushfires in 1939, the Black Friday fires.
Yep.
And Judge Stretton said that all the burning is what had made the bush more flammable because it causes dense regrowth. He then tried to focus prescribed burning just in specific areas where government agencies were controlling it to stop people broad-scale burning as much. But it's only really a thing that's come to us from America. We picked it up in the 1960s, and it was a method for managing pine forests. So it's kind of a forestry technique retrofit to manage bushfire risk. And the problem is that it just doesn't work. It gives a really short-term benefit with a long-term cost.
So you don't believe in plant birds?
No, not in burning big landscapes. You can use fire in small areas. You use it like a gardening tool to manage around a specific place. In a specific location where you control it, like First Nations used it for, tens of thousands of years. But this idea of burning whole mountain ranges, that's very much a concept that's come with British colonisation to Australia. And the reason I object to it is that since I worked in fire management and as a remote area firefighter, I've devoted the last few decades to studying how this affects the landscape. And what I've studied is past fires and where they've gone big and where they've stopped. And consistently across those forest types there, what we see is that all of the fires happen in the regrowth from the last fire. They stop when they get to the old growth forests.
Why is that?
Yeah, just a simple matter that plants get taller. If plants are short, they're close to the ground. You've got a whole lot of scrub close to the ground, and so they're easy to catch fire. But as those plants get taller and at times since fire increases, then they're out of reach of the flames more often. And that does two things. If they're not burning, they're slowing the wind underneath them, and that slows the fire down. But also they are more competitive. They take more of the light, the water, the nutrients, and so you get a thinner understory underneath them. And we see this consistently. The reason why we're so used to seeing dense regrowth in forests is specifically because those forests have been logged or burnt too often. We're not used to seeing old forests anymore.
I was just about to ask, where does logging come into it?
Yeah, same sort of thing. If you take out a big plant, take out a tree, what you've done is you've freed up a whole lot of resources and new things will grow there, but they're going to grow from the ground where they can easily catch fire. So, and you also have got shorter trees, which are closer to those flames on the ground, and so much more likely to give you crown fire. And there's so many studies now just showing this is the case, but it remains contentious because when we burn, it feels like we're doing something. We feel productive. But we've got to remember, these forests have been here for, 100 million years before we have, and they managed without bulldozers and chainsaws all that time. So they've got something worked out.
So what's the answer here? I mean, you mentioned earlier that First Nations people, they did do burns, but not entire landscapes. Do you think we need to be learning, seeking out that knowledge where it still exists, or?
Yes, we do. We need to be like a lot of the whole process there was not done for stopping bushfires. We've got to understand that. And we're in a different situation now where we've built towns and we want to stop fires from getting to certain places. And they weren't thinking along those lines. They're managing the bush for different reasons. But still, the fact remains that all evidence says there was a lot less bushfire before we started broad-scale burning. Even in the Snowy River area, if we look at fire histories, bushfires were really rare until we started this program of prescribed burning around the area. And it's only since repeated prescribed burns that we've got this dense regrowth and these big bushfires coming through more and more now. So, I mean, we need to pull back to letting those old forests mature again. The big thing we need to do is to be investing in our firefighters. So when I did remote area firefighting, it was an incredibly effective technique. We need a lot more crews that we can fly out with helicopters, have small aircraft that can support them. Got to spend less on those big showy aircraft that look great on the news and a lot more on small aircraft that can catch fires while they're small. Give the CFA new trucks, better equipment, basically support the things that we know that work. Then on top of that, there's fantastic new technologies being developed where, you know, in 2003, when we had all those lightning strikes come through, we could see them striking, but we couldn't fly anybody out there because the air was too turbulent to fly anybody out. So by the time we could get out there, you know, a couple of hours had passed and some of those fires had already spread to 50 hectares. So the way around that is that there's now this new technology where you can actually have autonomous drones that will fly while the storm's passing through. And the instant there's a lightning strike, the closest drone flies to it and sees if there was an ignition.
Yeah, right.
And then you've got something like a Hercules flying above the storm that's carrying another type of drone called a water glider that can carry over 1,000 litres of water. And it's GPS guided. It's instantly dropped from that plane above the storm, drops down through the storm and drops that water on that ignition. Now, if it's a standing hollow tree or something, that's not going to put it out, but it will contain it until we can get those raft crews out.
Okay. Phil Zylstra, thanks very much for your time this morning.